Here we are. This is Tinkercad. All you'll need to do, click up here, that Join Now button, and then you'll just create a personal account, sign in with your Google, and that will just log you into the Schiller.us network, and you'll have this for the rest of your school career as long as you stay at Schiller. So, it's just really straightforward and simple. You're welcome to do it with your own Gmail if you prefer. But this is where you'll land this page, right? You won't have this stuff down here, but if we just hit create new design, this will load in a second, and we'll be able to mess around with some of the basics. This is your work plane, right? If I left click, it'll drag this box out, but if I right click, I can move it all around, okay? Over here, these are your basic shapes. Just to start out with, if I click a shape once, it'll give me a ghost image, and then I click again, it'll set that shape down. So let's put a couple shapes out here and just start talking about what we can do with shapes, right? It's the building blocks to everything we're going to make. And this work plane is like ground zero, right? So if we look at it across here, if I right click, remember I can move that work plane, and I can either use my mouse wheel to zoom out and zoom in, or over here, if I click the home button, it'll give me back to here. If I click the next button down, whatever shape is selected by clicking on the shapes, it selects them, and then the second oval down will be fit view to selected shape, so it's nice and big. Notice this cylinder has a bunch of sidewalls. You can manipulate them over here. This box will show up, and where it says sides, we're going to crank it all the way up to 64. So if we went all the way down, it would only have 12 sides if we went around it, and if we can take it up, it's much more circular. So you want to check on those just to make sure it's the shape that you're looking for. The bevel, if we take it from this view, right, we'll change the edges of it. See if this top bevel is just right there, gives you a little bit of a bevel. Okay. Segments is from top to bottom, it doesn't do as much. You can play around with these settings, but for building things, it's really basic, right? Like I can put things together, okay? I can hold shift and I can make sure I click both objects. That's the little blue line that circumnavigates the shape. And then up here above the shapes is ways to join them. If they're selected, I could join them, and then they'll all turn red and it'll be that shape, right? So if I step back, which is now hidden behind my face right here, okay? Now they're deselected and they're separated. Check this out. They're both solid shapes, right here solid, but I can take this circle or the cylinder shape, make it a whole shape, and when you take whole shapes and solid shapes and select them both, right, by clicking on them, and now I group them, ta-da, it cuts out the solid shape. So it's like a cookie cutter. You can make cookie cutters. It'd be actually a pretty fun project, a quick, simple project. If you had access to a 3D printer, you could make cookie cutters. They do have PLA that's food grade now, which is pretty cool. But we are at this point sheltering at home. I hope you're doing well. That's the basic first steps: putting shapes together, hollowing them out, combining them. You can size them with these white boxes, right? This one goes up and down. These side ones take it out. You can move it and manipulate it. I like to get a basic shape of what I want it to look like, and then I often will type in very rounded numbers so that it's easier to subtract and add when I do other things to them. Because we could make a house really simply by building the walls, hollowing that out, right? So if I come up here to these tools, this will ungroup those shapes, right? Now I can get rid of this. Whoops, step back. I can get rid of just that circle, right? This shape, this rectangle, I come up here and I might duplicate it, right? I'm going to move it back one, make it a whole shape. Now I click on these boxes. Instead of just like manipulating it down, I'll just subtract 4. So I'll make this 26 and that one 16, okay? Now watch this. I hold shift, I click the red one up here, and these tools, I align them. So this is up and down, right? These are left to right, so I'll hit centered and the centered, right? These are going front to back, and these are left to right, X and Y axis. Now it's in the center, and I group it, and I've got that cut out, right? Pretty cool. So that's the first step for making some basic shapes. I could throw out some windows in here, move this down, and one more thing is this black triangle will raise it up, right? And I like to use my arrow keys to make sure it cuts through the wall, right? And that one I might move over to the right one so it doesn't cut out any of this wall. Not to confuse you, but watch this. It's selected. I can come up here to duplicate it. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bit thinner so it's more dramatic, right? It's selected. I duplicate it. Now I'm going to use my arrow keys. I don't click or do anything else. I make sure there's a space between it. And then I hit duplicate again. And it'll respond to what you told it to do. And it's basically just coded it to continue making windows however many spaces across. Now I can left click this whole box, group it, and I have a pile of windows right there. Pretty neat. Have fun, play around with it, see what you can build.